Power never disappears, it only changes its form. The crowns of kings have turned into corporate logos. The thrones of emperors now stand behind screens and microphones, but the laws that govern ambition, fear, and control remain the same. Those who rule today do not wear robes, they wear smiles, titles, and tailored suits. Yet beneath that polish beats the same ancient heart, the will to command, to shape the world according to one's design, to bend the uncertain into order. We live in an age that pretends to despise Machiavelli, yet every nation, every company, every politician is his devoted student. They quote morality in public and practice strategy in private. They preach transparency, but survive through manipulation. They speak of unity while plotting division. For power is never honest, it only pretends to be. It thrives on illusion, for illusion is cheaper than loyalty, safer than truth, and far easier to control. You can trace Machiavelli's ghost in every boardroom negotiation, every election campaign, every algorithm that predicts your desire before you feel it. The tools have evolved, the instincts have not. The battlefield is digital, the swords are psychological, but the goal remains identical: to gain influence, to hold it, and to destroy those who threaten it. Power adapts like nature. It rewards those who evolve faster and devours those who still believe the world should be fair. The modern prince is not born into royalty. He is made through perception. Reputation is the new crown, and attention the new army. If you can shape what people see, you can shape what they believe. If you can make them believe, you can command them without force. Today's rulers understand this perfectly, that the battlefield is the human mind. You do not conquer nations anymore. You conquer narratives. Machiavelli would not be shocked by our world. He would be amused by how easily it obeys his rules. We have built systems that reward deceit disguised as diplomacy, vanity disguised as vision, greed disguised as growth. The language has changed, but the meaning has not. When a politician smiles, when a CEO apologizes, when a media outlet proclaims truth, behind each gesture lies calculation. Not all deceit is evil. Some is necessary to prevent chaos. The ruler who tells all the truth invites his own downfall. Human nature, Machiavelli warned, is constant, self-interested, fearful, easily swayed by appearances. This truth has not aged a day. We still trust the charming over the competent, the confident over the wise. We crave strong leaders even when they lead us to ruin, because strength feels safer than uncertainty. Power understands this. It seduces before it dominates. Every tyrant begins as a savior. Every manipulator begins as a listener. Every empire begins with a promise. The art of leadership is the art of contradiction. You must appear merciful but act decisive. You must promise peace while preparing for war. You must flatter the people while keeping them dependent. You must honor virtue, but never be ruled by it. To survive, you must live between masks, never entirely honest, never entirely false. The world rewards the adaptable, not the pure. The moralist dies defending ideals. The realist builds systems that outlive him. And yet, Machiavelli was no monster. He understood that cruelty, when well used, prevents greater chaos. That mercy, when misplaced, invites collapse. His realism was not a rejection of morality. It was a recognition that morality without strength is merely decoration. The ruler who hesitates to act ruthlessly when required condemns his people to disorder. Power demands clarity, not comfort. It is not enough to wish for a better world. One must have the will to impose it. Look around you. Every movement, every revolution, every government, every corporation is still playing his game. They craft narratives of justice, equality, and peace. But beneath those words, the machinery of control hums quietly. Data is the new intelligence service, algorithms the new spies, propaganda the new religion. Those who understand this rule not through force, but through consent, engineered at scale. They do not need to chain you, they only need to convince you that you are free. Machiavelli would have admired such mastery, for he knew that fear and love are the twin pillars of control. But in the age of screens, fear no longer needs soldiers, only information. Fear is now manufactured in headlines, magnified by algorithms and monetized by media. The modern ruler governs not by decree but by data. He reads the pulse of the masses in real time and adjusts his image accordingly. Leadership is now performance. Politics is theater. The script changes, but the actors are the same. The tragedy of power is that it must betray something to survive. Every ruler betrays a promise. Every idealist betrays an ideal. Every leader betrays a friend. Loyalty is temporary, for necessity devours sentiment. Even those who love you today will abandon you when the winds shift. To lead is to accept isolation. To command is to stand against the tide of affection. Power cannot coexist with comfort. The crown weighs most on the conscience that still wishes to be loved. We live in a century that worships compassion yet obeys strength, that condemns manipulation yet rewards those who master it, that cries for equality yet secretly admires dominance. Machiavelli did not invent this hypocrisy, he merely named it. He held a mirror to human nature and refused to look away. His brilliance was not in teaching cruelty, but in revealing that cruelty already governed us. To deny this is to remain a pawn in someone else's game. Power has no ideology, only appetite. It bends any belief to its purpose. It wears the mask of progress in one age, of tradition in another. It baptizes itself in democracy when convenient, and crowns itself with tyranny when necessary. What matters is not the costume, but the continuity, the will to preserve order through any means. The wise ruler does not ask whether the method is pure, but whether the result endures. History remembers those who build. It forgets those who merely object. To understand, Machiavelli is not to become ruthless. It is to see clearly, to strip away illusions of innocence and recognize that politics, love, business, and even friendship are arenas of power. Every human interaction carries an exchange of influence, of attention, of control. To live without awareness of this is to live as prey. The modern citizen, flooded with noise, opinions, and moral slogans, believes he is free. But his thoughts, his fears, his desires are already shaped by unseen hands. Machiavelli's lesson is not to destroy morality, but to detach it from naivety. The good man who refuses to understand evil becomes its victim. The ruler who wishes to be loved at all costs becomes the puppet of those who flatter him. The idealist who refuses compromise ends as a martyr, not a maker. Virtue without strategy is weakness dressed as purity. The world honors results, not intentions. In every generation, there are those who try to rewrite his teachings to soften them, moralize them, sanitize them. But truth does not bend to comfort. The laws of power are as fixed as the laws of gravity. You can deny them, but you will still fall. You can despise Machiavelli, but you will still live in his world. For as long as humans desire, fear, envy, and dream, his logic will remain the blueprint of control. The 21st century is not a departure from his world. It is its perfection. The palace has become the platform. The subjects have become followers. The prince is now an influencer, a CEO, a political performer whose kingdom is the algorithm. Yet the core question remains unchanged: how to hold power in a world that worships its destroyers. The answer is the same now as it was then: by understanding men, not ideals; by mastering perception, not morality; by commanding necessity, not emotion. Machiavelli's shadow stretches across every screen, every speech, every contract signed in silence. His voice echoes behind the smiles of diplomacy, the promises of reform, the slogans of justice, because at the heart of every system, behind every illusion of order, there is a mind calculating, balancing, deciding what must be done to keep the structure intact. The names change, but the game remains. And so, centuries later, his truths still dominate the world, not because we chose them, but because they describe us. Because human nature has not evolved beyond the hunger to rule. Because behind every noble vision still beats the ancient fear of losing control. Because the pursuit of power cloaked as progress, dressed as morality, remains the secret heartbeat of civilization. The world may despise Machiavelli, but it cannot escape him. For as long as man walks the earth, he will write the same story, under new titles with new actors, but always the same plot: the struggle for power, the theater of control, and the eternal truth that it is better to understand the world as it is than to die dreaming of how it should be. And that is why his teachings still rule the century we call modern. Power has always been the great disguise. It wears whatever mask the age demands. In ancient courts, it cloaked itself in divine right. In republics, it hides behind the voice of the people. In our century, it wears the language of equality, progress, and freedom. But strip away the words, and you will find the same skeletal truth: the will to dominate, to impose order, to survive above others. Humanity changes costumes, not instincts. The stage is digital now, but the play remains the same. Every leader, every influencer, every institution speaks of service. Yet behind that service lies an architecture of control. They tell you it's for your safety, your comfort, your convenience. But the safest citizen is the most predictable one. The comfortable mind is the easiest to steer. Control has become invisible, woven into convenience, disguised as care. What was once achieved by decree is now achieved by design. They no longer need to command your obedience, they engineer your consent. Machiavelli would have understood this evolution perfectly. He wrote in a time when rulers feared assassins and armies. Today's rulers fear exposure, cancellation, the loss of narrative. The battlefield has migrated from territory to perception. The new prince fights not for land, but for attention, not for loyalty, but for belief. He must master optics as much as law, algorithms as much as armies. The state is no longer a fortress. It is a network of illusions. The citizens are not bound by chains, but by the invisible cords of data, distraction, and desire. To lead in such a world requires not virtue, but vision, not morality, but adaptability. The ruler must anticipate storms before they break, sense the pulse of the masses before they even feel it. He must learn to weaponize empathy, to use understanding as a form of control. The old tyrant ruled by fear. The modern ruler governs through affection. He convinces people they are free, even as he narrows the boundaries of their thought. He invites their participation, then dictates the terms of their choice. Freedom, as the masses understand it, is merely the illusion of influence. And yet, those who despise manipulation forget that order cannot survive without it. The crowd is fickle, the mob emotional. The collective will a storm that shifts with every gust of fear and hope. To rule that chaos without deception is to drown in it. The ruler's first duty is not to truth, but to stability. He must decide when to lie, when to conceal, when to act ruthlessly so that greater peace may endure. Morality without discipline breeds disorder. Compassion without strength breeds decay. There is a cruelty in nature itself that punishes weakness, and the same cruelty governs politics. Observe the nations that fell not by invasion, but by softness. They mistook comfort for peace, abundance for strength. They praised virtue while despising discipline. They let pity overrule judgment, and so their enemies did not have to conquer them. They simply waited for their complacency to rot them from within. Machiavelli would have called this the tragedy of mercy, untempered by necessity. For a society that refuses to confront its own corruption will always be ruled by those who dare to do what it will not. Every age produces two kinds of people: those who want to believe the world is fair, and those who want to understand why it isn't. The former pray for justice, the latter prepare for power. The first group follows leaders, the second becomes them. This is the eternal divide between innocence and strategy, between the dreamer who preaches virtue and the realist who shapes reality. The dreamer builds castles in the clouds, the realist builds fortresses in the earth. And when the storm comes, it is not the purity of intention that survives, it is the strength of design. Power respects only two currencies: loyalty and fear, but both are fragile. Loyalty dissolves under ambition, fear fades with familiarity. The true ruler sustains power through balance: enough generosity to inspire hope, enough ruthlessness to command respect. He must never be entirely predictable. Familiarity breeds contempt. Mystery breeds authority. The masses must never feel they know him completely. For the moment they think they do, they begin to judge him as their equal. The ruler must be visible but unknowable, human yet untouchable, a mirror of their desires, not their reality. In the 21st century, leadership is not inherited, it is manufactured. Image is the new bloodline. A well-crafted persona can achieve what dynasties once required centuries to build. But the danger of image is fragility. When your power depends on perception, one misstep can destroy you. That is why modern leaders obsess over optics, over narratives, over the choreography of emotion. The truth no longer matters, only its presentation does. The spectacle has replaced substance, and perception is the new throne. Yet behind that glitter, the same cold calculations remain: who gains, who loses, who serves, who rules. The world pretends to celebrate democracy, but democracy itself has become theater. The stage changes hands, the actors change lines, but the script remains. Offer hope, preserve control, and let the people feel they have chosen. It is not enough to wish for a better world. One must have the will to impose it. Look around you. Every movement, every revolution, every government, every corporation is still playing his game. They craft narratives of justice, equality, and peace, but beneath those words, the machinery of control hums quietly. Data is the new intelligence service, algorithms the new spies, propaganda the new religion, to guide the herd while convincing it to wander freely, to shape behavior not through laws, but through incentives, habits, and invisible architectures of control. The most powerful rulers of our age do not stand on podiums, they design platforms. They do not send soldiers, they send signals. Their wars are waged through markets, through media, through the subtle redirection of human desire. But do not mistake this as progress. The ancient vices are alive, only refined. Envy, greed, lust, pride, they have all found new instruments. The tyrant now wears the face of convenience, the merchant's grin of care. The public no longer fears the ruler, it depends on him. Dependence is the new slavery. The master no longer needs to chain the servant. He simply ensures the servant cannot live without him. The illusion of choice keeps rebellion asleep. The bread and circus are now digital, endless, and tailored to the individual's appetite. And yet, for those who wish to rule truly, rule the game remains the same. They must study human weakness, not condemn it. They must understand fear as both weapon and shield. They must be ready to do what others will not, to decide when others hesitate. Leadership is not a moral achievement, but an act of endurance. The ruler must live with guilt, for guilt is the tax of power. The moment he seeks purity, he loses clarity, and the moment he seeks forgiveness, he invites defeat. In exile, Machiavelli saw this truth clearly, that the world belongs not to the righteous, but to the disciplined. His writings were not instructions for cruelty, but for survival. He knew that fortune favors the prepared mind, that chaos rewards those who act. In his eyes, politics was not a tragedy, but a necessity, a way to impose order on the madness of human desire. And though the tools have changed, the need for order has not. The modern world still spins on the same axis: fear of loss, hunger for power, longing for control. So, as we walk through this century of false virtue, digital empires, and silent tyrannies, the lesson remains. Understand men as they are, not as they should be. Accept that appearances rule the world. Master perception, and you master destiny. Control information, and you control belief. Control belief, and you command reality itself. For in the end, power is not taken, it is constructed, cultivated, disguised, and maintained by those who understand the eternal machinery behind the illusion of choice. And those who still dream of a pure world, untouched by deception, will forever be ruled by those who have already accepted how it truly works. There is a quiet cruelty in truth. Those who dare to see the world without illusion are condemned to solitude. To understand power deeply is to lose faith in innocence. That is why the wise seldom speak plainly, for plain truth sounds like cynicism to those still intoxicated by hope. Machiavelli learned this early. Honesty is a weapon that wounds the wielder first. The prince must conceal not only his plans, but his comprehension of men, for to reveal that one sees through illusion is to threaten those who live within it. And so, even wisdom must wear a disguise. In the 21st century, the art of disguise has become a science. Public relations is the new diplomacy, algorithms the new oracles. Every word is measured, every gesture rehearsed, every emotion calibrated to influence perception. The ruler, the executive, the celebrity, all must now master the choreography of authenticity. They sell transparency while concealing strategy. They perform vulnerability to strengthen control. It is not deception in the old sense. It is illusion woven into truth. The most dangerous lie is the one told sincerely, the one that feels real. Consider the new forms of loyalty, not to nations or kings, but to brands, ideologies, and digital tribes. The crowd swears allegiance to narratives it does not control. It follows symbols that mean nothing but feel everything. The masses, believing they have escaped tyranny, have merely replaced their masters with mechanisms. They obey the pulse of algorithms, the seduction of trends, the authority of outrage. Machiavelli would have recognized this as the ultimate evolution of control, a world where people police themselves, convinced they are free. The modern prince understands that fear must be diffused, not concentrated. In old kingdoms, terror was centralized. A single execution could sustain obedience. Today, fear is atomized, distributed, made invisible. The citizen fears economic collapse, social exile, the loss of relevance. He fears silence as much as he fears speech. Fear has become personal, and thus infinitely renewable. The modern ruler does not need to terrify, he merely needs to maintain uncertainty. Anxiety is more obedient than dread. Power feeds not on violence, but on attention. Whoever commands attention commands behavior. The ancient prince conquered through armies. The modern one conquers through screens. He builds loyalty through spectacle, governs through rhythm, the constant pulse of notifications, headlines, crises, and distractions. The citizen, drowning in stimulation, mistakes movement for meaning. The ruler who masters distraction rules effortlessly, for no one rebels when they are entertained. The tyrant's new weapon is abundance. Machiavelli warned that men are governed by their senses more than by reason. In our time, this truth has become prophecy. People no longer seek truth, they seek stimulation. They crave validation more than justice, image more than reality. It is the most elegant form of manipulation ever conceived: power through consent, tyranny through distraction. The prince of today does not silence dissent, he drowns it in noise. He does not censor truth, he buries it beneath 1,000 competing narratives. The people, overwhelmed, grow tired of thinking, and in their fatigue, they surrender their freedom willingly. This is the perfection of Machiavellian statecraft: to rule without appearing to rule. Human nature provides all the tools: vanity, insecurity, desire. The wise ruler does not fight these forces, he channels them. He offers the crowd symbols to worship, enemies to despise, promises to believe. He shapes their moral outrage into fuel for his own agenda. Even chaos can be governed when properly directed, but the true genius of power is knowing when to retreat. The ruler who grips too tightly invites rebellion. The most skillful hand is the one that loosens just enough to create gratitude. Machiavelli knew that mercy, when calculated, is more effective than terror. A sudden concession at the right moment can reset loyalty, renew faith, and mask intention. The people will forgive anything if they believe it was their idea. The illusion of agency is stronger than any chain. Power does not die, it migrates. When one form collapses, another emerges. Monarchs fall, markets rise, empires crumble, corporations ascend. The methods shift from swords to screens, but the objective never changes: control over the human will. Every institution, whether state, church, or brand, seeks the same outcome: compliance dressed as conviction. The genius of modern power is that it no longer needs to command belief. It only needs to guide attention. Once you can decide what people see, you can decide what they think. Machiavelli's world was brutal but honest. The dagger was visible, the enemy declared. Today's world is soft, but deceitful. The warfare is psychological, the violence subtle. The modern prince kills reputations instead of bodies, erases truths instead of enemies. The art of destruction has evolved into elegance. He does not conquer land, he conquers minds. The subject does not even realize the war has begun until he has already surrendered. Yet, the same rules apply to those who resist. To challenge power, you must understand its language. Outrage is useless without strategy. Purity is powerless without cunning. The rebel who refuses to study manipulation will always be manipulated. The activist who rejects Machiavelli on moral grounds fights with blunt weapons against invisible enemies. To change a system, you must first understand why it endures, and it endures because it understands you better than you understand yourself. Machiavelli's lesson is not to become ruthless, but to become lucid, to strip away moral anesthesia and see human nature as it is a mixture of greed, fear, vanity, and desire for security. These instincts cannot be erased, they can only be managed. Civilization itself is the art of harnessing them without collapsing into chaos. The ruler who forgets this invites ruin. The citizen who ignores it becomes prey. Look closer at the modern world, and you will see his fingerprints everywhere, in the way media manufactures consent, in the way leaders balance outrage and hope, in the way institutions weaponize virtue while practicing vice. It is not that Machiavelli's ideas survived, it is that reality never changed enough to replace them. His truths are not relics, they are the operating system of human civilization. The software has been updated, but the code is the same. To live in such a world demands awareness, not despair. Understanding power is not surrendering to it, it is learning how to navigate it. The wise individual must become his own strategist, reading motives, recognizing manipulation, mastering restraint. In a world where everyone seeks influence, neutrality is extinction. You must either direct the current or be swept away by it. There is no middle ground between mastery and submission. The modern prince may no longer wear a crown, but his spirit governs every arena: politics, business, media, even love. Wherever there is hierarchy, there is strategy. Wherever there is desire, there is manipulation. To pretend otherwise is to live blind. To understand it is to reclaim agency. Machiavelli never taught men to be evil, he taught them to see without illusion. For those who refuse illusion cannot be ruled by it. And so his legacy persists not because humanity admires him, but because it remains bound by the same nature he revealed. The tools evolve, the actors change, but the drama continues. Power whispers through every age the same cold truth. Those who see clearly will always command those who cannot. That is why his teachings do not merely belong to the past, they define the present. The 21st century did not outgrow Machiavelli, it became him. Everywhere you look, Machiavelli's logic breathes beneath the surface. In the corridors of global finance, where markets are swayed not by ethics but by perception, the invisible hand of power manipulates with precision. A single tweet can collapse a currency. A rumor whispered by the right source can shift billions overnight. Here, influence is not measured in armies but in algorithms. The modern ruler is no longer a general, he is an architect of belief. He builds empires not from stone but from confidence. Destroy that confidence, and the empire implodes without a single weapon fired. In diplomacy, the theater of masks has become the entire performance. Nations smile for cameras while sharpening their knives beneath the table. Public gestures of unity hide private calculations of leverage. Sanctions replace sieges. Press conferences replace proclamations of war. The handshake between rivals is a performance meant for the audience, a photograph that calms markets and feeds illusions of stability. Meanwhile, intelligence agencies and economic interests continue the real struggle in silence. The rulers of today are no longer conquerors of territory, but engineers of narrative. Look at the technology companies that rule the digital world. They began as innovators and ended as monarchs. Their thrones are built from data, their power sustained by addiction. They control what billions see, hear, and feel not by command, but by suggestion. They know your fears, your desires, your weaknesses. and feed them back to you wrapped in convenience. This is Machiavelli's insight perfected. Rule through pleasure rather than force, through dependency rather than decree. The perfect tyranny is the one people line up to embrace. Consider the workplace. In every organization, power dynamics mimic the same structure as the state. The ambitious rise not merely through merit, but through mastery of perception. The competent worker who refuses to flatter authority may toil in obscurity, while the cunning one, skilled in timing and diplomacy, ascends. Promotions are not rewards for virtue, but acknowledgments of strategy. The modern office is a miniature principality: alliances, betrayals, performances of loyalty, silent rivalries. Even those who claim to reject politics are merely losing at it. And in love, yes, even there Machiavelli's realism finds expression. The pursuit of affection is a dance of power disguised as emotion. People seek control over how they are perceived, fight to gain advantage in the economy of attention, and guard vulnerability like a fortress. The one who appears less invested always holds command. The rules of seduction are not far from the rules of rule. Conceal intent, project strength, reward devotion selectively, and never show desperation. Love, when stripped of poetry, is another theater of influence. Observe politics in democracies. The candidate who speaks of unity does so while dividing voters with surgical precision. The one who preaches transparency hides strategy behind layers of spectacle. They do not seek truth, they seek resonance. Their policies are shaped by polling data, not morality, but mathematics. They know that emotion governs the masses more than reason. Fear wins elections, hope sustains them. Each campaign is an act of controlled manipulation, appearances of choice, engineered outcomes, managed dissent. The people do not elect rulers, they confirm illusions. Even in culture, Machiavelli's fingerprints remain. The artist who wishes to influence must now play the same game as the politician. People proclaim moral virtue in public, while feeding the very systems that exploit their virtue in private. Institutions no longer demand faith, they manufacture it. Outrage, righteousness, and belonging are distributed like commodities. The new priests are influencers, the new congregations, digital crowds hungry for identity. The old church threatened damnation to control souls. The new one promises virtue points to control behavior. Both achieve obedience through guilt, but one hides it in hashtags. Machiavelli's principles govern warfare, too, though the battlefield is now economic and psychological. The world's powers wage invisible wars through cyber sabotage, trade manipulation, and information distortion. A meme can destabilize a regime. A leak can ruin a government. The modern strategist does not need armies. He needs influence over attention. Nations have become brands competing for loyalty, and patriotism itself has become a form of psychological marketing. The ruler who understands image more than ideology wins before the war even begins. Consider also the rise and fall of public figures, the way admiration turns to hatred, then to indifference. The crowd that crowns you today will crucify you tomorrow, not because you failed, but because novelty demands blood. The prince must never depend on affection. Affection is volatile. He must build institutions stronger than applause. In an age of fleeting attention, the ruler must learn to outlast emotion. The crowd forgives everything except boredom. Power, therefore, must always reinvent its image before the masses tire of it. The corporate world mirrors the court of Renaissance Florence more than it admits. There, too, every word is calculated, every alliance temporary. The CEO is a prince surrounded by advisors who serve ambition more than loyalty. Competitors court regulators, investors whisper into boardrooms, and innovation becomes a weapon. Every decision, every merger, every partnership hides a duel beneath diplomacy. Even failure can be staged, collapse can be rebranded as reinvention. To fall strategically is often more powerful than to win foolishly. In media, the journalist is not the observer but the soldier. Truth has become a weapon, wielded selectively. Outrage sustains viewership, not accuracy. The ones who shape the narrative rule the nation more effectively than any king. The wise ruler no longer silences the press, he feeds it stories that serve his design. He knows that truth, when drowned in excess, ceases to matter. The greatest victory is not to convince, but to confuse. When everyone doubts everything, control passes to the one who decides what deserves attention. Even education has become a subtle arena of control. Schools no longer merely transmit knowledge, they manufacture ideology. They teach conformity disguised as virtue, obedience disguised as empathy. The system does not reward independent thought, it rewards acceptable expression. The prince does not need to suppress rebellion when he can educate it out of existence. The child raised to fear disapproval becomes the adult who policies himself. Machiavelli would have admired this. The state no longer enforces obedience, it grows it. And beyond nations and institutions, in the silent domain of the self, his lessons still reign. Each person, knowingly or not, constructs a persona to survive, a strategic version of self tailored to win approval, affection, or influence. Identity itself has become political theater. The art of living is now the art of image management. People curate their virtues, conceal their flaws, and call it authenticity. They mistake performance for sincerity and mistake visibility for worth. Even in private, the self negotiates with its own reflection power turned inward, Machiavellian instinct reshaped as self-branding. Look around, you will see Machiavelli's spirit not in libraries, but in lives, in how people manage relationships, careers, and reputations, in how they weigh kindness against usefulness, principle against advantage. The difference between the prince and the common man is no longer circumstance, but awareness. The ruler plays consciously, the citizen plays unknowingly. Both manipulate, both deceive, both pursue advantage, but only one understands the game. So when you hear the world denounce Machiavelli as cynical, understand this. His sin was not inventing darkness, but naming it. The ones who fear his truth are those who depend on illusion. He did not corrupt humanity, he revealed its operating manual. And though centuries have passed, and civilizations have risen and collapsed, his diagnosis remains accurate. The 21st century is not the age that outgrew him. It is the age that finally proves him right. Because no matter how modern we become, the essence of power does not evolve, only its instruments do. The strategies that governed the courts of Florence now govern the servers of Silicon Valley, the elections of democracies, the movements of markets, and the algorithms of thought. The prince has gone nowhere. He merely learned to code. To understand why Machiavelli still dominates the modern world, one must grasp that his teachings were never about cruelty, they were about clarity. He stripped power of its myths and showed it as it truly operates, indifferent to morality, obedient only to necessity. This clarity has become the unspoken creed of every system that governs today. Whether in statecraft, business, or social life, his philosophy remains the compass for those who must act, decide, and survive within the chaos of human nature. His voice endures not as a doctrine, but as the instinct that whispers beneath all leadership that survival requires precision and vision requires distance from illusion. In the 21st century, this clarity is more vital than ever. The structures of authority have multiplied, the layers of deception have deepened, and the crowd has learned to disguise obedience as opinion. Yet Machiavelli's gaze cuts through it all, revealing that every era, no matter how civilized, is still ruled by the same silent law. Power organizes itself around those who understand necessity. The modern world may claim to have evolved beyond the crude mechanisms of command, but its engines still run on the same fuel: ambition, fear, desire, and the perpetual contest for dominance. Machiavelli's relevance persists because human nature has not matured. It has only become more sophisticated in its self-deception. His philosophy survives because it speaks to the heart of reality, the tension between appearance and truth. Civilization depends on the balance between what people must believe and what rulers must know. The surface must glow with virtue, while beneath it, the machinery of control grinds relentlessly. Machiavelli taught that success belongs to those who master both levels, who can speak the language of morality while thinking in the logic of necessity. This dual awareness is the price of leadership in any age, but especially in ours, where the crowd's morality shifts faster than the winds of fortune. To rule today is to swim in contradiction, to navigate both idealism and calculation, without drowning in either. The endurance of his influence lies not in his name, but in his accuracy. Every functioning power structure, whether acknowledged or denied, operates according to his principles: appearance over essence, adaptability over rigidity, perception over purity. These are not choices, they are conditions of survival. To ignore them is to lose before the game begins. The modern ruler, even without reading The Prince, acts as Machiavelli would have advised, not out of cynicism, but out of instinct. When faced with uncertainty, he calculates. When confronted with chaos, he imposes order. When morality conflicts with stability, he chooses stability. It is not ideology that governs him, but consequence. Machiavelli remains sovereign over modernity because he described the architecture of human will. He showed that every structure of power, no matter how noble its language, is built upon control of perception and mastery of timing. In this, he revealed the rhythm of survival itself. The world changes its costumes. Democracy replaces monarchy. Transparency replaces secrecy. Yet the choreography remains identical. The dance between ruler and ruled, between image and truth, continues in eternal repetition. Power is a theater that never closes, and Machiavelli wrote the script that every actor still follows. The 21st century is his kingdom precisely because it denies him. A world obsessed with morality and virtue has merely learned to disguise its manipulation in softer tones. The same instincts he exposed now operate beneath the banners of progress and justice. His genius was not that he celebrated ruthlessness, but that he understood its inevitability. He knew that behind every ideal stands a mechanism that must enforce it, and that mechanism must obey the laws of power or collapse. Thus, even in an age of moral language and global sympathy, the world continues to be governed by the cold arithmetic he described. Who can act? Who can endure? Who can decide when others hesitate? To reject Machiavelli is to reject the truth of how the world functions. To accept him is not to lose morality, but to ground it in awareness. For morality without strategy is fragile, and power without reflection is blind. His teachings remind us that to preserve virtue, one must sometimes act beyond it, that order is sustained not by sentiment, but by wisdom. He revealed the anatomy of governance, not to glorify manipulation, but to ensure survival in the face of human volatility. This is why his name endures, because he taught rulers not what they wished to believe, but what they needed to understand. Machiavelli's dominance in our era is not cultural, but structural. His principles have become invisible laws, embedded in every system of coordination and control. They guide the movements of markets, the logic of politics, and the very psychology of ambition. The world does not merely follow him, it is built upon him. He is not remembered because we read him. He is remembered because we live according to his truths without realizing it. His insight became instinct. His realism became reflex. Humanity's refusal to confront its own nature ensures his immortality. In the end, Machiavelli's relevance is not that he spoke of power, it is that he spoke to it. He gave language to the instinct that drives history, the will to shape destiny despite the chaos of men. And though centuries have passed, no philosopher, no moralist, no idealist has undone his revelation. The century may call itself modern, but its heart beats with the same ancient rhythm he once described: ambition, clothed in virtue, control disguised as care, and the eternal struggle between those who see reality and those who worship illusion. That is why his teachings still dominate the world, because the world itself remains Machiavellian. The true genius of power lies in its invisibility. The most absolute control is not the one that declares itself, but the one that no longer needs to. The ruler who understands this ceases to chase admiration or obedience. He cultivates structure. He builds systems that continue to rule long after his hand is gone, habits that command without orders, loyalties that survive without presence. He knows that power is not preserved by force, but by dependency, the art of making others believe that their strength flows from you. In this way, he becomes indispensable without appearing dominant, and his influence endures even in his absence. The modern prince must therefore rule not over people, but through them. His strength lies not in suppression, but in orchestration. He must design the conditions under which men choose what he has already decided. To accomplish this, he must master the economy of attention, the theater of persuasion, and the rhythm of necessity. He must speak rarely, but each word must weigh like law. The more he governs perception, the less he must govern action. It is better to guide a current than to fight it, to shape will rather than confront it. But every prince, whether in Florence or in the digital kingdoms of today, must face the same storm fortune. Fortune, that capricious mistress, favors those who act with readiness and audacity. The hesitant perish not because they are weak, but because they are slow. Power is never stationary. It rewards those who seize the moment when it hesitates. The man who waits for the perfect condition already yields to those who create it. Machiavelli knew that the wise ruler does not beg for luck. He manufactures it by force of decision. Fortune bows only to those who act before her shadow falls. To endure, the prince must cultivate adaptability as his highest virtue. Rigidity is the first symptom of decay. What destroys rulers is not failure of courage, but failure of adjustment. The world shifts like the tide its tempers, its values, its idols. The leader who insists on remaining what he was becomes his own ruin. Adaptation, in this sense, is not weakness, but intelligence, the instinct to remain the same in purpose while changing in method. It is the art of shedding forms without losing essence. Only those who can bend without breaking deserve to command. And yet, the prince must never allow adaptability to become confusion. A ruler without a core becomes a leaf in the wind, useful to others, loyal to none. Constancy of aim must balance flexibility of method. The prince may alter his course, but never his destination. Men respect consistency of will more than consistency of action, for they measure leadership not by perfection, but by direction. When storms come, the ruler's certainty becomes the harbor in which his people seek refuge. A leader may not be loved, but he must be believed in. The foundation of all power remains the same: fear, loyalty, and necessity. Of these, necessity is the most stable. Fear fades, loyalty wavers, but necessity endures. The ruler who ties his fortune to the needs of others creates a bond stronger than affection. When men require you for their survival, they will defend you even when they no longer revere you. The prince's task, therefore, is to bind his subjects, his allies, his enemies, all to the continuation of his design. He must become the axis around which all outcomes turn. To remove him should feel like dismantling the world itself. But he must also understand that every alliance hides ambition. The loyal will one day covet, the friend will one day envy, the admirer will one day doubt. Therefore, the wise ruler rewards allegiance without depending on it. Gratitude is fleeting, but self-interest is eternal. It is better to build around men's desires than their devotion. Use their ambition to reinforce your structure, their vanity to secure your peace. Those who serve their own gain willingly serve your order, provided you know how to align their hunger with your purpose. In the theater of power, virtue is not absence of vice, but mastery of timing. Mercy shown too soon becomes weakness. Cruelty delayed becomes chaos. The ruler must act when the moment is ripe, not before, not after. The art lies in striking with precision, so that the blow restores balance rather than unleashes destruction. Justice is not equality, but stability, the maintenance of order against the tide of impulse. The prince who hesitates out of pity will soon be forced to act out of panic. A swift hand at the right time prevents 1,000 cruelties later. He must also guard against the most seductive illusion of all, the belief that goodwill alone can secure power. Men are grateful for favors only while they are useful. The moment gratitude costs them, it vanishes. Generosity must therefore be measured, strategic, never sentimental. Give enough to win loyalty, never so much that they forget dependence. To give beyond necessity is to arm your own rivals. In politics as in war, excess is the parent of downfall. The modern age tempts rulers to mistake popularity for legitimacy. This is the ruin of many. Approval is a crowd's applause, loud, shifting, empty. Legitimacy is endurance, silent, grounded, earned through time. The ruler who chases popularity bends to the winds of opinion until he forgets his own direction. The crowd rewards the spectacle, but only until the next one arrives. The prince must stand apart from the applause, neither feeding on it nor fearing its withdrawal. It is better to be respected in silence than celebrated in noise. Machiavelli's wisdom still governs the world because it defines what leadership truly demands: an alliance between courage and calculation. The ruler must feel deeply but act coldly, love humanity but never trust its moods, pursue greatness but guard against vanity. He must be both fox and lion, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The fox senses traps, the lion breaks them. The balance of these instincts is what allows power to endure through storms and peace alike. In the end, the essence of Machiavellian thought is not ruthlessness, it is lucidity. It is the understanding that the world is neither fair nor merciful, and that only those who see it clearly can shape it wisely. The prince rules not because he dominates, but because he perceives. He understands that to govern others, one must first master oneself, one's fear, desire, pride, and compassion. Power without inner discipline collapses into tyranny. Discipline without courage decays into impotence. To unite both is the eternal task of rule. Thus, the teachings of Machiavelli endure not as relics of a darker age, but as the mirror through which every leader must still measure his soul. His truths live because they describe not only politics, but existence itself, the unending dance between will and fate, between the human dream of order and the chaos from which it must be carved. And as long as men desire greatness yet fear the cost of it, Machiavelli will remain the secret author of every throne. In the end, Machiavelli's shadow stretches not as darkness, but as definition. He did not corrupt humanity, he revealed it. He showed that the struggle for power is not a disease of civilization, but its pulse. Every institution, every nation, every man who seeks to command or to endure still walks the path he mapped, for his truth was never bound to a century. It was written in the structure of human nature itself. He did not preach evil, he preached survival, and survival remains the only law the world obeys. His teachings endure because they are not lessons in conquest, but in clarity. To see without illusion is the rarest courage. To lead without innocence, yet without despair, is the highest art. The wise ruler, the true statesman, the conscious individual, all must learn to act with the discipline of reason and the foresight of necessity. Power is not glory, but responsibility sharpened by solitude. It asks of those who bear it to love humanity enough to govern it as it is, not as it pretends to be. And so, in this modern age of glittering morality and silent manipulation, Machiavelli's voice still whispers beneath the noise. Govern perception, master fortune, endure reality. The world belongs not to those who dream of perfection, but to those who act with precision. For appearances will always rule men more than truth, and necessity will always outweigh virtue. That is why his wisdom remains immortal, because no matter how the world evolves, it will forever be ruled by the same hands, those strong enough to see clearly and disciplined enough to act without illusion. Machiavelli does not haunt history, he defines it.